Hey everybody, delighted to find that my pre-order for the Guardians of Galaxy Marvel Legends Infinite line arrived. Very surprised that it came this early, as I don't believe they're in stores, at least nowhere around in my area. I wanted to give my quick and dirty review and my initial thoughts on this line. As you can see, we got Drax the Destroyer, Cosmic Iron Man, StarLord, Rocket Raccoon, Gamora, Richard Rider as Nova, and of course the Build-A-Figure Groot. The sculpts and articulation are pretty much what we can expect from Marvel Legend, and the overall great paint apps I'm happy with, especially in the eyes. No real derp faces here. I really like what they did with the box art design that we're starting to get familiar with these new Infinite Marvel Legends line. I'll start right down the line here with Drax. What you'll immediately notice is the textured sculpt of his tattoos. I think that's real nice attention to detail. They could have easily just went with a paint app, but I'm glad that they went this route. You know, he's more or less just a guy without a shirt, so the raised texture on the tattoos really helps add dimension to the look of the character. He has a fairly good resemblance to Bautista the actor. His eyes are more or less looking in the right direction, and that's doubly impressive if you can see from the vid. His eyes do have a two-toned color. As I mentioned earlier, pretty much everybody in this line has the standard articulation that we come to expect from Marvel Legends, with a few exceptions, of course. He has his head on a ball and a hinge. He's got articulation of the shoulder, biceps, double-jointed elbows, swivels and hinge at the wrist. He's got the waist articulation, the ab crunch. He's got articulation in the hip, rotations in the thigh, and he's got the double-jointed knees, of course, and our beautiful rocker ankle pivots. He comes with his signature daggers. They're pretty much a simple sculpt, no paint apps, but I think they look great as is. And Drax is easily the most straightforward figure out of the lot. Here's StarLord. I think I'm most easily impressed with this character out of the lot the most. Main thing being he is in a trench coat, and I was a little worried that with other Marvel Legend characters that we've seen in the line, like the Nick Fury and the Red Skull, the jacket had really hindered a lot of their articulation and a lot of the finer points of those figures. But as you can see here, he is definitely posed in a nice stance that kind of shows off the range of motion that he can get to, even while being a figure with a trench coat. As you'll here see, it is of a softer material. You can get a pretty wide range of motion and poses out of it. It does definitely take a little bit of work. They're at the also at the shoulders, not a lot of hindering from the jacket there, a little bit, but it's very satisfying to see a character with a trench coat that you can get a good wide range of motion. Another great thing about this figure, he does come with the most accessories. He does have the backpack. I do believe it is removable. It looks like there is a detachment point right there, and he does stand fairly well. Let's see, and he also comes with the guns that we see in the movie. They're two-toned, got a little bit of paint app. They look really cool, I think, right there. Also, we got his Walkman and headphones, of course, that we know from the trailer, and also the little ball that we also see in the trailer. I'm sure we'll find out more about what that is about once the movie comes out. And again, he has the switchable head, which is a great likeness to what we see in the trailers, and also the normal head of StarLord. It's got a pretty well likeness to the actor. The eyes are fairly well done. No lazy eye or anything going on there. And yes, I think StarLord is definitely one of my more favorite characters out of this wave. Here is Gamora. I'm always happy to see more female characters get represented in figure form. She has a fairly good likeness to Zoe Saldana, and it's an overall great sculpt. Unfortunately, like other female figures that we get, we tend to lose some articulation, which is understandable due to thinner sculpts. Though if I recall, Black Widow did have ankle pivots, where Gamora merely has the hinge and the rotation, and she does lack the up and down movement in the torso, which merely moves left and right. I do like she has a belt, which is a separate piece, and I really do like the unique design of her sword. I really like that. Despite my nitpicks, I really do like this figure a lot, and again, I'm always happy to have more female figures represented. Before I get on to the rest of the movie characters, I'll briefly go over the two comic figures. They both pretty much have all the standard Marvel Legend articulation, like I mentioned earlier, including the ankle pivots and the wrist hinges on top of the rotations. There is a lot of blue and red plastic going on and not a whole lot of paint taps, but I think I'm fine with that. I do like the glossy look. I think it's fitting for both of these characters, and the blue and red contrast well while they're standing next to each other. I've read a little bit about Cosmic Iron Man, and I know he's not everybody's favorite design, but I'm a fan of Iron Man variants, so I think he'll stack up nicely up next to the rest of my Marvel Legend Iron Mans. I do have to mention the shoulder pads are done in the similar fashion as the original Marvel Legends Mark III Iron Man, so be careful not to lose those. And speaking of shoulder pads, Nova has these interesting articulation points at his shoulders. I guess they do more or less help him with his range of motion on his arms, and yeah, that's an interesting way, but I think a new way that I have actually not particularly seen. But yeah, overall I like these guys a lot. I do recommend them, and not just for their additional Build-A-Figure pieces. Other than the Build-A-Figure, this is probably the character I've been waiting for the most. He is a smaller figure, so along with the Build-A-Figure piece, he comes with a few other larger accessories. He comes with this odd contraption. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it looks like there's a chest plate here, and then there's handles that appear that a character can hold. I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but I guess we will find out soon enough what that does in the movie. And of course, what would Rocket Raccoon be without his gun? I think it's got a cool, decent sculpt. There's no real paint apps, but it's got a unique design, and he holds it fairly well in his arm. As his articulation is fairly limited, his head is on a ball joint. There is movement in his arms, single joint elbow that rotates, rotation in the hand there. The waist goes back and forth, and then there's a little bit of articulation in his tail. I don't know, despite these lack of articulation, I really like the figure. I think it's really great. I guess it is kind of a glorified minifigure, and I do love minifigures. I'm totally enamored with this character, love them in the comics, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in the movie. And now we have Groot. The overall sculpt is awesome, but it could have used a little bit more darker paint wash to bring out some of these details, but other than that, I think he looks really, really good. I really dig his face. Those eyes are very emotive. There's just something about that black sheen. You really feel like you can see what he's thinking or feeling about, even though he is, of course, not a tree of many words. He came in 6 parts. He came in as the head and the upper torso, the abs, and of course the legs and arms respectively. He was very easy to put together, and the joints stay very firm. Don't feel like he's going to fall apart. He is very well articulated. He does have the head on the ball joint, movement in the shoulders, rotation of the biceps, double jointed elbows. He does have the wrist hinge and the rotation. There's movement in his torso, movement in his hips. There is single jointed knee, and he even has the ankle pivot, which is awesome. Look at that. Yeah, overall, I think he's a great figure. He is an essential member to the Guardians of the Galaxy, so I would do whatever you can not to miss this Build-A-Figure. That's Groot. I think he's very awesome. And of course the shot that everyone's waiting for. Groot and Rocket Raccoon! Overall, I think the set is great. Even the comic figures fit in nicely with the movie characters. Others some tiny nitpicks on articulation and looseness of weapons and figures' hands. They pretty much stand up to what we're familiar with current Marvel Legends figures. If you can still find this set on pre-order, I highly recommend it. If anything, you do need a Groot with your Rocket Raccoon. Enough said. Wanted to give my quick initial thoughts on the Guardians of Galaxy Marvel Legends Infinite line. Good luck, and thank you. See you soon.